What is a scientific fact that you know is true, but it still blows your mind that it is real? That you actually have a 0.2 to 0.3 second lag on everything you perceive, your brain just tricks you into thinking you don't. The fact that our eyes see everything upside down and our brain flips it so it makes sense to us. And if you wear glasses that invert everything you see, your brain will eventually figure out what's going on, and flip it back for you. That the black mesh on the front of microwaves works by physically blocking the waves, because the waves are so big they can't fit through the holes. Microwaving a grape creates plasma fireballs. I must test this. One weird fact about humans is that people with brown eyes actually have blue eyes under a top layer of brown pigment. There's some researcher who developed a laser that can zap that top layer of brown pigment so it drains from your eyes, hence leaving your eyes blue. Confirmed how incredibly small things get, and the fact that sometimes these incredibly small particles just randomly move around via quantum tunneling. Still being studied, that there might be shit swimming around on one of Saturn's moons. That the majority of the oxygen on the planet comes from plants in the ocean. Sharks existed before trees. What the actual duck? Like, I understand the concept that I'm a sack of trillions of atoms interacting with each other through an incredibly complex system of molecules, but it still just feels like I'm sitting here doing nothing and browsing Reddit. Always blows my mind. There's roughly 7 times 10 to the 27th power atoms in the human body. That's more than a trillion trillions. Or more than a billion billion billions. And I just couldn't get a couple more billion for my wiener. Radio waves. Totally get the science, but what the duck is that shit about? Like music is transported on invisible lines that zap the sound into my car, and the dash shows words that tell me what the name of the song is, and my ears absorb those lines and I jam to music. What? That every time you shuffle a deck of cards it is statistically more likely that this new combination has never been shuffled by anyone in history, not just yourself. You can crunch the numbers and it adds up, but it's just so crazy when you have those 52 cards in your hands how this can be true. Late to the party, but the fact that you're never really touching anything. It doesn't so much blow my mind as it does make me upset and uncomfortable. Do you think this will hold up as a defense in court? Are you planning to not touch something? Consciousness. One day you're just floating in warm liquid, without a care in the world. A few weeks later, you're aware of things and taking careful notes about what happens to you in case it becomes important later. It seems if I raise my voice loud enough, they'll come back into the room and give me food. At what instant do you pass from non-conscious to conscious? And what are you doing while you're not conscious? Do your thoughts count as thoughts, or are they just bright stripes and shapes caused by bursts of electricity in your brain? When do you have your first bona fide thought? What is a thought? Time passes at different rates depending upon how fast you are going. The really trippy thing is combining that with a bit of other relativistic knowledge. There are no absolute speeds. All speed is relative to another thing. You can't accelerate to the speed of light with respect to any other thing. You can accelerate to 99% of the speed of light with respect to the Earth and then shoot another object out in front of you at 99% of the speed of light, and from the Earth that looks like that object is barely faster than you. If we were right now in another place about 65 million light-years from Earth or something like that using a special instrument, we could see dinosaurs. Maybe that's why we haven't been contacted by life on other planets, because they all think we a bunch of ducking dinosaurs. The fact that DNA can make all these different forms of life out of just 4 bases. And every computer program ever written is made out of just 2. A lot of the power and variety comes from the hardware that runs it and interprets the data, which can't actually act on its own. But without the information, a computer would just be a lump of silicon, and a human would be just a lump of goo. We are hurling through space at an amazing speed and we don't even feel it. Not only is the Earth revolving on its axis, but it is also moving around the Sun, and the Sun is moving within the Milky Way, and the Milky Way is moving through the universe. But we don't feel a damn thing. If you had an image 2000 by 2000 pixels, range 0 to 256 cubed, and randomized the pixels at some point, you'd see pictures of yourself, your children, works of art, the cure for cancer, and everything else that could be imagined or exists or will exist. This is like that Tower of Babel book that contains every word, phrase, or sentence that ever has existed, or will exist. The blue whale is the largest animal to have ever lived in the planet, and it's still alive today, right on the front page eating krill. Some fun facts. Blue whales eat 8,000 pounds of food per day, so about 40 million krill. And for the first year of life, baby blue whales will gain up to 200 pounds per day, despite being born at a weight of 3 tons. I love that. That's one of my favorite nature facts. We picture dinosaurs as being these colossal things that nothing on Earth measures up to, but blue whales are not only bigger than the biggest dinosaur we know about, they're a lot bigger. Well, being aquatic helps a lot there. Something the size of a whale isn't going to do well on land. Your mom seems to do okay. The size of the universe is not only growing, the growth is accelerating, and many of the earliest galaxies have such a strong red shift that we needed to build the James Webb Space Telescope so that we can image them in infrared, since Hubble has reached the limit of what can be seen at visible wavelengths. Quite literally, Hubble has reached the universal equivalent of draw distance in a video game, and eventually James Webb will do the same thing, in the far infrared. At some point we will stop seeing modern galaxies, and theoretically start seeing the early Protuniverse, assuming James Webb is sensitive enough to detect it. Bonus mind-blowing fact, that observable distance is related to time. The farther away you look, the farther back in time you look. For every grain of sand on every beach on Earth, there are over 10,000 stars in the known universe. And there are more atoms in the amount of salt that can fit in one hand than there are stars that we can see. How often body cells are being replaced? Your stomach cells every 2 to 9 days, your skin every 10 to 30 days, lungs alveoli every 8 days. Makes you think how many times you've been made over. The T-Rex is closer in time to us than it was to the Stegosaurus. Dinosaurs were here for a very long time. Cleopatra lived closer in time to the opening of the first Pizza Hut than she did to the construction of the Great Pyramids. I have seen more of the surface of the moon with my own eye than the surface of the Earth, just from really far away. Your shoelaces come undone because the knot is subject to forces of up to 7 Gs with every step you take. Similarly, people complain that human knees are poorly made. When you run or jog, your leg takes a 300-pound shock straight through your knee with every step. 40 to 60 years is an insanely good operational lifetime for a regular steel jackhammer, let alone one made of bone and muscle. I weigh 130 pounds and Reddit does not understand how impacts work. In fairness, meat has a self-repair mechanism that steel doesn't. A speck of dust is halfway between the size of the Earth and an atom. Whoa! If you think that's impressive, look at the differences between the size of the atom and the particles that comprise it. Existence really is mostly nothing. But here we are, looking at pictures of cats. That viruses pretty much hijack cells and turn them into virus-making factories that make different parts of the virus in different places of the cell, like devious little robot aliens trying to terminate us all. Viruses scare the hell out of me. So Lake Washicum, a lake I live on, lost about 3.5 feet of water from the start of May to the end of August last year. It's a 90-acre lake, so that's about 103 million gallons. That's about 860 million pounds of water, or about 430,000 tons of water. That's about 3,500 tons of water a day. 146 tons of water per hour. 82 pounds of water leaves my lake every second, almost entirely by evaporation, in the summer. It's a really small lake, most people call it a pond. Last year, not this year. I understand there is a lot more going on than just evaporation, and I'm not about to do a differential equation to factor in ground slope for my silly thought experiment. My number is obviously significantly off from the actual amount, but I've had it confirmed that I'm on the right order of magnitude from a NASA friend of mine that studies this sort of thing. My point is that it's a lot of ducking water. 37.2 kilograms, pounds is like 5.8 stone for everyone complaining about my freedom units. Wow. That's a good one. Mind blown. I never realized that much evaporation happened. Evaporation happens so fast you can measure its rate on an analytical balance. You can literally stick a beaker of water on the balance and watch as the beaker gets lighter. The fact that my heart beats, my food digests, my muscle cells and neurons fire, my body knows where to replace an eye cell or toenail cell in the right place. All of this and plenty more happens while I sit on my bottom and surf Reddit without a thought about all that's going on inside. That the passage of time isn't uniform for everything. Yeah, the fact that GPS satellites have to correct their software for time dilation effects to sync properly with ground stations because they receive less gravity than the GPS stations on the ground just amazes me. It exists. We can measure it. Not just the gravity but also its incredible speed as it orbits. GPS is one of the only technologies that needs to account for both special and general relativity. This is going to be really stupid, but the fact that ice is less dense than water. It's one of the few solids that is less dense than its liquid form. It's actually a very surprising fact. Also, the world as we know it would be fundamentally different if not for that fact. Fundamentally, as in life as we know it would not exist. Liquid water is pretty nifty stuff. Not stupid at all, it's contrary to the behavior of most other liquids, but if it weren't the case, life might never have developed on Earth. I teach 5th grade, their minds were blown when I told them the sun is a star. I think a couple of them wanted to fight me over it. The joys of mind-blowing kids. How many times did you retype this phrase until you were comfortable with the wording? Lol, still not comfortable, but what can I do, you know? The distances and sizes involved in astronomy. Stars thousands of times the size of the sun, object millions of light years away. It's unfathomable. If the moon were only 1 pixel, this should give you a good sense of proportion. Hint, click the arrows on top to skip faster to the text bits. Link will be in the description down below. 1. There are colors and lights my eyes cannot physically see due to not having the biologic hardware needed to do so. 2. Each one of my eyes sees colors differently. 3. Sometimes I have mental input lag, and though I can see something quickly, my ability to react to it just as quickly is limited by my physical abilities. 4. I could simply die at any moment from a large number of random variables, and I might not even be able to acknowledge my death. 5. The most dangerous thing I do daily, by a very wide stretch, is drive a vehicle. Leave a bunch of hydrogen alone for a long time, and it will probably do everything. I forgot who the exact person the quote is attributed to, but a physicist once said, given enough time, hydrogen atoms will eventually go through puberty and want to talk to girls. My favorite version of the saying is, hydrogen is an odorless, colorless gas which, given enough time, will start to think about itself. Also, relevant XKCD. Imaginary numbers. What the duck? And who came up with that name? They're almost challenging me not to believe in their existence. They're just badly named in my opinion. Mathematically they are valid, but calling them imaginary just makes lay people think it's something mathematicians pull out of their bottom for fun. You should check out quaternions sometime. They're like imaginary numbers, but 3 times as imaginary. There are colors that other species can see but we can't. Damn, I really want to see a new color. Gödel's incompleteness theorem is up there for me. You can prove using only arithmetic that there are true statements about arithmetic that you cannot prove using arithmetic. The proof involves encoding statements about numbers into numbers and then breaking the 4th wall to let one side of an equation represent facts and the other represent numbers. Reading the proof ducks your head so much more than just reading the theorem. What? More of a historical than scientific fact, but mammoths and the pyramids existed at the same time. If you have 2 legs, you have more than the average amount of legs.